So first of all, thank you all for being here. I want to say that everyone in the room knows who you all are, but maybe you want to we'll go through and do a quick round of introductions before we dive in.
All right, I'm Bruce Bales. I head up CPaaS messaging for now Cisco as IMI Mobile.
I am Ed Curtis. I am the CEO and co-founder of a new network authentication company called SUSH, but I've been in messaging since its inception.
Right, I'm Tony DeRuvo. I'm over at Infobip, and my claim is I was one of the early ones on the RCS team, and I was the product manager at Open Market at the time that brought the commercial RCS.
And I'm Ryan Tollefson. I am the product leader in TELUS Partner Solutions for what we call emerging services, which includes RCS and A2P, among other things. And I am definitely the new kid in the block compared to these gentlemen when it comes to RCS.
Age-wise.
I don't know about that.
Also, you have more
background-wise. I mean, I think you guys you birthed RCS at some point.
Look at the scars.
So I'm just going to dive right in, and I'm going to ask Eddie this question because I want to hear him say on this stage that he was wrong. So how has the Apple enablement of RCS changed the trajectory of RCS and RBM?
So for years, even when I was running this at LivePerson before Ruth came on board,
Yep.
for years I said there is no way Apple is ever going to support RCS business messaging. Shut up, it's a red herring, you don't know what you're talking about. And then what was it, 3-4 days ago or last week, I see a screenshot of of the Apple client that said, turn on our RCS business messaging. And I was shocked, I was blown away. And I would say repeatedly all the time, there's no way they're going to support it. They got Apple Chat for Business, they don't want this crap on their network, blah, 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 blah. I was 100% wrong, so I'll admit it. So that one wrong does not equate to all the times I've been right, but it's you know, it's like the Titanic hitting the iceberg. It happens once. So yeah, so I was wrong. I truly, honestly did not believe they were ever going to support it. But I couldn't see it.
So it might be good to update people on kind of what you're alluding to, right? Because a little over 4 months ago, Apple made their first RCS, real RCS announcement. And so a lot of us were in Barcelona okay, what does this mean? How far is it going to go? Lots of different opinions. We were all debating it, trying to put all the pieces together. I'll say a few of us, I would say, figured out the pieces, but that's only become clear recently, almost weeks for real confirmation. Mm-hmm. So in the newest beta version of iOS 18, it does in fact support A2P RCS. Yep. That was one of the questions. We literally are able to send A2P messages now to iPhones that have the beta on it. iOS 18 is supposed to come out in September, so then we'll start getting a pretty steep ramp on upgrade to the new iMessages client, which will then technically enable both P2P and A2P RCS messaging on iPhones, okay? Now, there's some other things in the way, and I'm sure we'll talk about them, but I just wanted everyone to know how significant this change is because it's breaking news.
But what's crazy, it's only 7 versions late. So us at least, and there's a number of people in this room, we were the founding members of the GSMA Future Networks RCS thing. And in Barcelona a number of years ago, we were all sitting outside this undescript booth, and then they came out and said, Apple's going to support RCS in iOS version 11. Right. It's now iOS version 18. But
better late than never.
Better late than never. And it was you know, like I said earlier, I truly believed it was going to be a red herring. It was only going to be for P2P. And then they announced. And I was one of the first people, and Stuart Mitchell gave me the credit. I was one of the first people to say, did anybody read the actual announcement? Because they said they're going to support UP 2.4. Right. And I was the one going, Android messaging does not support UP 2.4. So it was almost like Apple was playing 4G chess And Google got what they wanted. Apple has said to support it, but then Apple goes, we're going to do 2.4, and Google doesn't, Android messaging doesn't support 2.4. And I go, oh, Apple's going to support it, Google's not. And then when it doesn't work, Apple could say, hey, I'm doing what you asked me to do, EU. Find Google. This is Google's problem. So they actually built their own, I believe, if I got this right, they built their own interface between Jibe and iMessage. And they never had, I don't know why they did it. For some reason they did it, but they built this interface between the two platforms, and now it's an OTT.
With the benefit of hindsight, I get to say and observe that they had nothing to lose. So, I mean, I think Apple's a win-win. They get to be able to say, we're going to allow you to terminate commercial messages.
Yep.
I don't have to build that into iMessage. It can still be user-originated. And you can't blame me for any spam that
Exactly.
happens. So I think they were brilliant.
No, they were brilliant, yeah. You're right.
So this is obviously a huge step for our industry. We've all been talking about RCS and RBM for years, and this feels like a really pivotal moment. But is this a situation where now it's open season, we're ready to go? What are some of the unknowns that still exist specifically with RBM? And let's say in North America, but if you want to talk specifically about Canada or about the US. So maybe I would really like to get Ryan's perspective on this, so maybe we can get Ryan and Tony to jump in on this one.
I mean, we're just beginning the journey. I mean, it seems like we've been talking about it for a long time, but we're just beginning the journey.
Right.
TELUS is just in the position to be able to launch RBM within the last week. And so now working out how we do that, operational processes, the expectation of brand vetting and how we work with the aggregators. So I think between now and the end of the year, at least on TELUS's schedule, is going to be very pivotal to figure out what we don't know already about how we're going to run these campaigns. The good news is I think it will take some time for the brands to ramp up using it. So I think we have the ability to grow into it a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and back on the point of the gaps, I think for me a more important question is that we're 5 years late. We could have done a lot of work even without Apple in the ecosystem, to be quite honest. And my argument has always been, just take existing traffic and deliver it as an RCS message when the handset supports it. And this way, the end user gets a branded experience, and we talked about fraud, and at least you have the check mark. And there's some things you can mitigate on fraud just by having that branded experience. It's great for the brands themselves to have the ability to have, instead of some non-disclosed 5-digit code, to have their actual name in your inbox and your logo. And so I think, barring any gaps, which we'll see in the technology and the interaction between these two operating systems, I think Canada should be a leader by the end of this year because it's a cohesive market, one of the few in the world that we can actually do this. And we as an industry should be sending RCS messages, period. We shouldn't be even looking at it as a new technology, but rather something that you have to do in messaging, and that's provide a logo and a brand when possible.
So is Canada ready to start doing that in terms of, I think there are commercial agreements that still need to be worked out. What about onboarding? Do we know how onboarding, verification, how that's going to be managed?
Can I do, so I'm going to make a prediction.
Okay, great.
Because I was right last time, and everybody said I was being dramatic, and then when Google took it all over, I asked the industry, am I being dramatic now? Because I said this was exactly what was going to happen. The challenge that mobile operators have today is the fact that Mavenir is out of the RCS business, so there is no carrier RCS business. And I know I ran it over there, and I remember shutting it down. So there's no,
your fault.
there's no, I know, no, it wasn't, no. There's people I could blame.
Okay.
So the map layer, which gives them control over RBM, unless the carrier has put it in there and became the map of record, it's Jibe. Jibe is Google. Everybody said Google wasn't going to take over RCS, and they did. So carriers have an innate way of overanalyzing something and never launching to the point where Google goes, this is costing me hundreds of millions of dollars a year, I'm going to go ahead and and just take it over, right? They did it when they were complaining, Google was complaining repeatedly about two-factor. So if anybody who doesn't know, the technology behind RCS is when you turn on the application does two-factor authentications that are hidden, and Google was spending a fortune globally, right? To just turn on, activate the Android messaging, deactivate, and reauthorization, and that was happening multiple times a month. So what did Google do? They turned it on globally, and OTT traffic fell off a cliff. So if the carriers don't step up and say, hey, we own this, this is our, RBM is ours, and we have either our own maps, I know Steve's there, you know, Interop has a wonderful map, but I think that they're the only vendors left, and become the map of record and truly launch this. I mean, TELUS is doing a great job. You're right, Canada is kind of like that small ecosystem with Rogers and Bell, and Bell was doing it for years, and so was Rogers. If they become the map of record and they truly own the RBM space, they won't have to worry in 6-8 months from now when Google goes, you know what, you guys are not launching, guess what? You come to Google, the brands can come to Google directly, and we own it. Because, believe it or not, guys, RCS is not a carrier platform. It's those days no longer exist. This is a Google service, plain and simple, because there is no carrier RCS CPM platforms unless you were grandfathered in. And Telefonica, Mavenir, turned their stuff off and went Google. So that's what I think is going to happen.
So everything you said is 100% correct, Eddie, for sure. I wasn't here at the time when we were trying to do it ourselves, so I don't really have that context. But I would say I've been in telco now almost 16 years, and telcos don't have a problem of trying to do things themselves. Like, I mean, we try to do everything ourselves. So what I would say, I do think that the MNOs, and TELUS in particular, have to be very active in how RBM goes to market and how it's managed. And I've been pretty tough on Google over the last year, even including on this stage. But I have to give them credit where it's due. I think that they have, you could say they did what they had to save RCS, or at least to keep it alive. And I think now we're in a position where telcos have to learn how to work with outsourced software partners. That's what Google is.
I agree.
And I think in Canada we have the opportunity to maybe do it somewhat differently, because we don't have the same brand vetting risk, I think, that you do in the United States. We still have it, but it's a little different. So I think the ability to be able to take Jibe to the next level, maybe we'll need another map on top of it, I don't know. But I think we are here today because Jibe exists.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
So there are obviously some question marks around how a brand will actually go to market with RBM. We are all big advocates for RBM and rich messaging and all of the awesome benefits that it provides. So Bruce, how does Cisco guide and advise its clients in this still unknown territory?
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, if we back up a few months where we were much less sure what was going to happen with RCS, is still the place for brands to start, okay? And my advice would simply be, it's very clear that rich messaging, conversational messaging, and personalization are coming, okay? We're all used to that in all of the other channels that we get information from, right? We're not still reading newspapers with only type in it or whatever. And so that will absolutely happen. And so whether it's going to be Google or Apple or Meta and their various applications that ultimately brings all of this to the market, we do know what the future is going to look like. And so for a brand, the problem is that they know how to do 160 characters, but when we start getting into branding and the use of their images and brands, and they start having to change their business practices, okay? That's what it really takes to do it. It isn't just a matter of, great, RCS is here, let's start sending messages tomorrow, right? There are a lot of inhibitors out there. So what brands need to start thinking about are, how do we move into this world? A lot of them are doing it with email, already, right? How do they move into this world where there is content and media and conversations and responses, and it's easy to do business with, and they fit in personalization and obviously AI and all those things, right? And they can do that kind of independent of, well, it's RCS or it's WhatsApp or it's whatever, okay? Or it's everything. You don't need to know the answer for exactly what's going to be to know that you've got to change the way that you start representing yourselves to your consumer customers, okay? And that's where they really need to start. And then ultimately the brands need to think about, where do we fit in the adoption curve? Are we going to be a leader? Are we going to do the work it takes to pioneer here on how you can really use these channels effectively? Or are we going to wait till other people do it and we're going to follow, right? And that's what I think, that's an internal conversation that effectively every brand should be having now.
So you brought up Meta and OTT, and so I think when we talk about potentially giving that, or advising clients to take that more omni-channel approach, I think North America is unique in the sense that, I've met a lot of people from the UK or from other countries that still can't believe that SMS is as big as it is here. So how do we collaborate with, compete against OTT to kind of keep all of this viable? We all have skin in the A2P SMS game, and so how do we prevent or mitigate the potential for A2P SMS erosion?
It's going. You might as well just deal with it.
Okay.
Because it's coming. Now with network authentication, Solid North is going to kill OTP, right? So it's all about the conversation. I agree with you. When I was at Live Person, I owned it, right? The whole conversational commerce, RCS, that was all me. Maven, integrating AI before AI was cool, right? We were doing all, brand discovery. Using RCS to do brand, I need a credit card, and Maven will respond back with credit card offers and carousels. We walked into the Vodafone POC with 500 brands. People were literally buying travels, right? So business messaging is going to replace that whole A2P. A2P from an authentication and stuff like that, RCS does it better, right? Quick replies and all that, right? The carriers need to come to terms with the fact that brands are looking for something else because it's not working, right? SMS was never designed for authentication. And I say this in my pitch to whoever, SMS was great. SMS has always been a great tool, right? The reason why the US doesn't have an OTT problem is because Metro PCS decided one day to give away messaging. And then all of a sudden everybody follows suit. So messaging was included in the bundle. France did the same thing. So the US and France don't have a WhatsApp problem, right? Everybody in the rest of the world it was $1 to send in an MMS message, remember? Yeah. Right? All of a sudden they're doing it on Facebook and WhatsApp. And so that's why we don't have a real OTT problem, but it's coming. But from a big percentage of the traffic today on SMS is OTP. Now, OTP, again, SMS was never designed for that kind of security. It was because everybody kept losing their dongles. Remember back in the day, I worked for Verisign. We saw a dongle. We always lose them. Oh, but just send you a text message with the code, and right? And then it blew up and became a $19 billion business. But it's not secure. It's never designed to be it. That's why things are now moving. And Nick over at Mobile Square actually had a great slide where he shows it's going 4 different places. It's going to go email, for the love of God, third-party apps, OTT, so now you're starting to see the things for WhatsApp, OTT, right? But everybody doesn't realize WhatsApp is more expensive than SMS in most markets. And then mobile authentication, network authentication. Now that's what I'm trying to grab that piece, right? So you're going to start seeing the erosion, and companies like your company and now with the carriers implementing that whole business messaging, conversational commerce integrating with a true AI. I mean, we were doing predictive AI at LivePerson originally. Now it's generative AI, where you can, and I said this when we were talking on the call, and I got to give the credit to John Duffy. Anything you do with an app, you could do with RCS. You can go through our entire sales cycle right there now with generative AI and not sticking a human in the loop. So that's where the revenue and the growth is going to be exponential, because when you can start doing brand discovery as a carrier, being able to set positions within your ecosystem to say Royal Bank of Carrier, when someone goes, I need a new bank account, maybe Royal Bank of Carrier is the first one to come up. You're now Google.
Don't tell net neutrality people.
You know, it's an exciting time. This was something we were talking about 4 or 5 years ago when I was at LivePerson, but now to see it starting to come into fruition is pretty exciting. That's where the growth and the real big revenue is going to be, instead of just sending code for a couple pennies.
I have 2 comments. One is I think OTP absolutely is being eroded, but I think it's going to be eroded in spite of RCS, not because of it.
No, I think you're right. Yes.
And RCS might have an opportunity to actually slow the erosion because it's actually more secure. So like most people don't know, if you ask the average consumer the level of security on an SMS message, and I'm not entirely sure I want to tell them that when I move to RCS, but I mean that is one of the things to think about. But the other thing I believe our industry, for better or worse, sometimes overcomplicates things a little bit, because I think the consumer, like these big brands who are buying marketing, they have agencies who are going to learn this stuff. And if there's a channel that has better value, that's economical for them, they're going to move towards it. I don't think it's about the technology to them. I mean, it's about with the fact that they can have a conversation, they can interact, they can engage with their clients, and it's better. I think that's an advantage we have over Meta. I also think the fact that we have bigger reach that's built in ubiquitously into the actual network is an advantage over Meta, and we may have got there in time. So I think those are all the advantages that we have to where we are now. There's some risk there too, but I'm choosing to be an optimist today.
I appreciate that. I'm going to switch things around, and I want to talk about the negative side of things for a second, because Eddie, you mentioned that you can really go through the entire sales cycle, in theory, through RCS or through RBM. So Mike Redding, in his presentation, talked about impersonation and spoofing. So the level of damage that we can talk about that would impact a consumer with RCS and that brand and that, that trust that we're trying to establish and build, if that gets eroded because of impersonation and spoofing. Right.
Done.
So how do we stay ahead of that? We have the opportunity to stay ahead of this because RCS and RBM is not entirely out there yet. So as an industry, how do we stay ahead of this? Maybe Tony, I'll start with you.
It is a hard problem to solve, like we saw in the presentation. Now, if you're going to copy Royal Bank's logo as an MMS, and most people won't know the difference.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
But you can just get on Google Images.
And he mentioned that education maybe is not the answer, but maybe there has to be some education from the carriers to the end users. Maybe that green check mark becomes a little bit of a meme somewhere, where at least a larger part of the population starts to understand that they need to have that green check mark for verified, like we did back in the browser days with HTTPS and VeriSign and all that stuff. It won't solve the problem, but I think it'll mitigate the problem.
But I think the original requirement, and sitting right there, right?
Steve, yeah.
Sitting right there, he can keep me honest. He's a CTO of an RCS platform company. RCS on an A2P side or business messaging side is inherently secure. The only way a brand can get in to the network, regardless of where it is the content store. So then all that information gets put into their content store, and if a message comes in from that originating ID, it validates against the content store, and if it doesn't, it gets kicked. So it's almost like it's a closed network. Now, on the P2P side, there's an issue there because it's truly an IP service, and you can write code and it's based on Android, blah, blah, blah.
And a consumer does, the average consumer, like we know this stuff, right?
Right.
We
Yeah,
live and
we
breathe
know
it.
this
The
stuff.
average consumer
Now
does not
it's the
understand.
education, but here's the other thing, and I said this earlier. On the content store or the brand verification, when I was at LivePerson, brand verification was huge to me. Talked to all these companies to help us do brand verification and get that check mark, because as a publicly traded company, and if I said it was Coca-Cola, it was Coca-Cola. But then again, I'm LivePerson. I'm not ABC, small little marketing company who says they have approval, right? So there's a process that needs to be put in place that if it is Coca-Cola, it's truly Coca-Cola, and it's in the content store, and the people are doing their jobs. As long as they're doing their jobs honestly and respectfully, I think we're okay, because it hasn't rolled out yet, and we'll see further in the future. But you're right. There is, if you start to see our business messaging, and there's a lot of fraud coming in on the business messaging side, not the P2P side, on the business messaging side, you're done. It's over. You might as well just close up shop. If you don't mitigate the P2P side, and Proofpoint, and there's other companies out there that really can start getting a handle around the P2P side, I truly think if we have an opportunity to stop this shit right now, like literally. It was better when it was a carrier platform. It's not Google, but we have the opportunity as an industry to stop it now before it even starts, because, once it starts, they're going to go where the money is, right? And that's why I think the challenge is. So it's up to us as an industry to nip it in the bud.
Just echo that the P2P RCS gray routing problem is an unknown to me right now. And how that will be managed.
I think you're right.
So I think that is one of the big operational risks we have with RCS as an operator, because it's not clear yet. I'm sure many people will talk to me about it over the course of the next 2 days, about how we're going to actually manage that. But yeah.
So let's flip back to the positive side. The last question that I want to ask everyone is, I just want to go down the panel and ask each of you what you're most excited about, or what you feel is the biggest opportunity for rich messaging in the next, say, 1 to 2 years.
Well, I think if we recognize that businesses and their practices and the systems they use are tied to how they're doing communication today, we've got to evolve that, right? We've got to take them the next step. Companies are going to start at different levels and have different amounts of effort they're going to put into it. So I think we're going to see branding happen very quickly. We already have a major bank in Canada that's now branding all the messages they can. And that's what we're going to see in the next year, is this evolution from just text to branded and image and a little bit more than that.
I actually think, if they do this right, I actually think RCS is truly, and business messaging is truly going to democratize the industry. It's not going to be the big brands. You're going to see the plumber driving down the street with the QR code, and they're going to be able to take a picture of it, and regardless of whatever device, now that Apple's now on board, regardless of any device, literally have a conversation with a generative AI about setting up a plumbing appointment, being able to deliver like pictures of what's going on, or doing searches from the yellow pages, and having those two-way conversations with any brand or any business. So it's not just the big Bank of America's, Royal Bank of Canada.
Right.
It's Eddie's Plumbing and Joe's Pizza. I don't know why it should flip that around, but
Eddie's
it's going to be
Pizza.
Eddie's Pizza. It's good, but I think it's truly going to be now the SMBs, and I know how difficult it is to deal with SMBs, but the SMBs are going to be able to actually participate in this ecosystem, be discovered, have the conversations, especially with generative AI, be able to truly interact and never, ever have to create their own app. So I think it's going to be very, very, very exciting, especially now with Apple. I think it's going to be a very cool time.
As a consumer, that sounds super exciting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Tony, what are you excited about?
I'll take my excitement slot and turn it into a challenge slot.
Okay,
I think
okay.
as an industry, we do this every year, and it's fantastic. I want to see next year all of us move a little bit towards having a screenshot where we're saying there's 100 million RCS messages going through every day. So that's my challenge to Canada. Let's make Canada the world leader so we can have some press releases in Barcelona saying how great we are here in this country.
I love that.
And not just because of Putin.
Yeah, well, you need to couple that with poutine and smoked meat, which you're not aware of yet, but the Canadians here know. Eddie doesn't understand.
Ever been to Montreal?
Yeah, I love Montreal.
Okay.
Okay.
So I would say maybe a little further out. I will be really excited when we stop talking about RCS. Mainly because we've been talking about it as an industry for a long time.
Yes. Yeah.
Consumers don't know what it is, and I don't know if we should bother to educate them on that. I want them not to have to worry about this.
Yes.
Like SMS is RCS. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
that's where it's going to be in the future, and they are going to be engaging with it. And what will be exciting to me is when no brand decides that they have to ask someone to use WhatsApp.
Right. I agree with Ryan. Let's
it's funny,
let's make
Ryan.
RCS a bad word. It should be just
No,
messaging
you're right.
for everybody.
But I remember one time I said, RCS, SMS 2.0. No, it's not. It's
Yeah.
its own thing. All right. I agree.
Yeah.
Like I said, we get in our own way
No,
because we
I
talk to
agree.
each other at the
I'm with
engineering
you.
level, but the consumers
Right.
don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't care.
Enough with the 3-letter acronyms.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
Well, I think we've got some time for any audience questions, if there is any.
Any takers? Any takers? Eddie's ready to talk.
No, I'm not. You know I will punch you in the face.
I know.
Bill?
After a drink.
Oh, yeah. Bill Dudley. Excuse me. Eddie, you said something that concerned me. You said OTPs over RCS is more secure than SMS. True. The delivery is secure. The problem is we've overthought RCS. We've made it too easy. We send an RCS OTP. Do I accept, yes or no? What if I accidentally said yes? I did not engage with the original transaction that originated that message. Therefore, I've let somebody fraudulently into my social account.
Yeah, I see what I'm
saying?
definitely see your point.
Yeah.
It was more a generalization of how, with quick reply and how
course.
making it, so that's more what I was
But when
talking
we
about.
design our brands design our RCS solutions, we need to think about things like that.
That's
We
why they
can't
need
make
to
it
use
too
solid
easy.
authentication, baby.
Exactly.
Solid auth, SIM swap, number verify, roaming status, and 36 other attributes. No, sorry. Not a sales pitch for Sush, sorry. All right. But no, you're right.
Any other questions? Kind of hard to see.
Dude, you work for me.
Not
you
really a
know.
question, but it's Tony, you're right. I think next year, the challenge is for everyone, MEF, everyone, to have the brands on that couch.
Right.
Not talking about their campaigns and RCS, but how effective they are against other channels. By the way, I did that with the Subway 2 years ago, so.
Yep.
Right.
Surrender.
Hi, this is for TELUS and maybe, Caitlin. Is there a plan for the Canadian operators to kind of align in terms of common verification for RBM in Canada?
Not yet, is the short answer, but I think that obviously we're discussing that actively with the help of the CTA. So we don't have that answer yet, but I mean, I can see the benefit of it, so yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Questions?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was painless.